my beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode of Your Wichita Falls. And if you're new here, I'm Debbie Dobbins, and I am your hostess with the mostest. I've been doing economic updates for years now, cutting through the noise, telling it to you straight. And for the past 4 years, we've been in some sort of weird wilderness that all I had was bad news, and it was really hard to predict anything because the Fed is on some weird trajectory, which you can check out these videos. And of course, the economy was in the tank. So today I thought, let's look at some good news because we have lots and lots and lots of good news out there. And what's interesting is the good news that you see on reports, because you may not be feeling exactly in your pocketbook just yet, but you will. I want you to really get clear that things are on this new trajectory. Not only are your interest rates going to go down soon, even though Mr. Jerome Powell is a little bit of a curmudgeon, which I've said that before, so it's not a new statement that I'm making. But the fact is that there's so much good news out there and there's so much light that I can see at this end of this tunnel, which is not a train. So let's not sugarcoat what's happened in the past few years because it's been a crazy wild ride. Inflation, high gas prices. Every time you go to the grocery store, you're like, that thing used to be, $5 less last week. Everything has been skyrocketing. Interest rates, you name it. We've lived it. I know you've lived it because I've lived it. And it's been really, it's been really challenging. And you know what? I teach abundance, so we will always get through it. No matter what kind of environment we're in, we will always thrive in it if we choose to. But here's what's happening right now that you probably aren't hearing enough about, because that's what's really so cool. If we're paying attention, we can begin to see that things are moving and are in our favor and going forward in a great direction. Now, I did a video very early on in the year about eggs being ridiculously high and why they were so expensive. So please check out that video. But they're now down almost 60% from their peak, which was crazy land. Now, gas prices are coming down because I talk about supply and demand. I've done tons of videos on supply and demand, what that means for prices. We are increasing the supply of gas. That means that the prices of gas are going down. They are not down as far as I would like them right now, because I was hoping they would get below $2 a gallon, but we are headed in that direction. Gas prices are coming down. Groceries, there are some groceries that are finally starting to come down. Now, the thing is that you can cherry pick what's not coming down. Absolutely. People can always do that. You can always point to an example of something. But what's interesting is when I go to the grocery store now, not only are egg prices down, but my overall bill, I can feel it lessening. Is it lessening by leaps and bounds? No, but we are like frogs that were being boiled in hot water. Those prices going up were like this, and it wasn't like from here to here, it was like this. So they're going to come down that same way and a little bit at a time. But what's really, really interesting is that last month's jobs report doubled its expectations. So what that means is jobs are actually in high demand here. So if you're looking for a job, which if you stay tuned on most of my channels, I talk about being an entrepreneur, but that also is good for the economy. So jobs are increasing, entrepreneurship is increasing, and that's not nothing. That's actually such a great sign of the direction that we're going. Now, I've done a video on the stock market, so please go watch that here because some of you may be going, what about the stock market? Frankly, I can't even tell you how much I'm not a fan of the stock market, even though I've recently invested because it was on sale. What I'm talking about is not numbers on a paper. What the stock market is numbers on a paper. And I've talked about this many times about the stock market, that it's like a little Las Vegas. So I'm not going to get into it about the stock market. You can watch one of these other videos, but the real movement is in the right direction. There is this sense that things are getting better. And I know that when you hear consumer confidence reports and all of these lagging indicators, this is where we really truly are, is that the economy is being reset and beginning to grow in a way that is new and fabulous. And because as an abundance teacher, I always say you can't do the same shit one day and expect a different result. That is insanity. So now, if you're wondering, why doesn't it feel better yet? Oh, okay, we are the world of instant gratification. Because you're not wrong. It always takes time for the average American to actually feel economic shifts. That's just how economics work. And I find it fascinating that people in general believe that there's just a lever, that you turn up and down or you press up and down that will create all of the movement that we need. And it isn't like that. Unfortunately, think of it. We have this behemoth economy that has so many moving parts to it. You have to begin with the small shifts. And what we have is an administration that's paying attention to some of the bigger shifts. So that can feel uncomfortable. Literally, that can feel uncomfortable. And being a person that went through cancer treatment, lost all of my economic ability, all of my ability to bring finances into my beingness, and going on food stamps, it was a culture shock. It was something that was hard, but yet I knew it had a finite shelf life. So let's look at this of how things are getting better. Remember during the Biden administration when they told you everything was getting better? I heard that and went, what? Because I know how to read the reports too. But your grocery bill was 30% higher. And I don't know, your paycheck wasn't stretching nearly as far. Exactly. This time though, this is what's really, 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 really important. The fundamentals are actually turning. The fundamentals. So when you begin to look at the minutia of all of these reports, the earnings on these big Fortune 500 companies, the gas prices going down, the regulation and people being able to do things and build businesses around things that don't need all that regulatory, the eggs going down, the interest rate is going down, and it's not because the Fed has anything to do with it, because it's directly tied to the bond market. So I want to share, there's videos on here you can learn about how the interest rates are governed by the bond market, not by the Fed. But here's the thing, we're standing at the edge of some major, major, major breakthroughs. Major breakthroughs. Lower taxes coming for everybody. So what does that mean? That is lower taxes, but that's more money in your pocket. If the prices were even to stay the same, but you have more money within which to pay for them, it's still a good thing. That's not what's happening, but that's a good thing. A very good chance the Federal Reserve will finally have to lower interest rates, because I'm telling you, by the second quarter of this year, things are going to start to shift in a way that you will just be blown away by. But if they just open their eyes, meaning the Fed, and read the real data, like I'm reading it, and I've been reading it for 2 years now, they would be able to understand that we need to stimulate this economy rather than dampen it, because that's all they've done for the last 5 years is put the brakes on. Actually, they have like their foot on your throat. But let me take you back for a minute. Let's just go back for a minute. Because back in March of 2022, I told you, I said the Fed was crazy to start jacking up interest rates the way they did. And listen, nobody's asking me and appointing me to be on the Federal Reserve any day soon. But frankly, the Federal Reserve is just, don't get me started on that. But they do not support our economy. And the fact is they're trying to deal with inflation and unemployment at the same time. And they only have this one blunt instrument, which is called rates increasing or decreasing. And I've done all kinds of videos on that. But the fact is that they, in my humble opinion, did not do this properly. But they were reacting to fear. The Fed was reacting to fear just like everybody else, and not facts. And I explained back then the bond market and the stock market and how they operate literally like prepubescent children. So if you're looking at that as your lighthouse, then you're going to be severely disappointed. They're just literally like these teenage boys hopping up and down on Red Bull. overreacting to every little thing. And what the stock market has done in the past few weeks is a perfect demonstration of that. But the Fed says not even what it does. It doesn't create this robust economy. And that behavior drove these mortgage rates, these car loans, and the credit card rates through the roof. So not only do we have high prices for everything, then everything costs more because people are not paying cash and they're putting it on these credit cards and they're buying houses and their interest rates are so high and your car's rates are so high. I mean, it's no wonder we're feeling this like terrible crutch. Eventually, the Fed, sooner than later, hopefully, is going to get the message. They have been unnecessarily squeezing, literally like squeezing our heads off. Us as poor Americans really didn't need this. And guess what? Guess what? It didn't fix inflation. I know y'all think it did because the inflation rates came down, but it came down so slowly and so painfully that we're all now still reeling from it because that's not how this works. But here's the bottom line. Today, the Fed has kept rates too high for way too long. It's time for them to get out of the flipping way and let the recovery we've built actually flow into people's pockets. And I don't know, speaking of getting out of the way, let's talk tariffs because everybody's got tariffs on your mind. And I think it's important for all of this discussion, even though things are getting better and the reports are showing that everybody's, getting the benefit of this. The problem is that there's a thing out there called tariffs and it is like somebody's calling it the boogeyman. Some people are so upset about these recent tariff moves. But listen, I've been watching the market for 30 plus years, and I have seen this trade deficit with China for 30 years. And honestly, I understand it way better now than I did then. But even then, in my infancy of understanding economics, I thought, that's not right. This huge trade deficit that we have with China has devoured our economy. That's the biggest issue here. It's like an addiction. An addiction, I say, and as an addict who's recovered, I understand what that's like. And trust me, I know a thing or two about being addicted. I've lived it. So when you're addicted to cheap goods from China, like we all are, it's just like being addicted to crack. I swear to you, it's just like that. So withdrawal is hard. Trust me when I say. There's pain, there's detox, but if you stay the course, there is light, there is freedom, there is real abundance. And my friends, that's the bigger picture. Because where we are in a healing process right now is going to be so magical. And I am so excited to see where we are, even in just 6 months. And I will say, it's messy. It's uncomfortable. But it's working. It's working. So hang tight, budget wisely, invest smartly, and most importantly, stay hopeful. Because for the first time in a really, really, really long time, it's actually getting better. And make sure you subscribe to this channel, turn on your notifications, ring that bell, and I'm going to be dropping a deeper dive what those upcoming tax cuts could mean for you personally and how to position yourself to really take advantage of this next chapter of our economy and our world and your abundance. And as always, y'all come back now, you hear?